In our political climate, I've seen a lot of upheaval. I mean, I used to live in a very democratic blue state of California, and now I live in Alaska, which is an extreme red state. I don't like the political climate of where I live, and the people listening that live in the Midwest or somewhere where you live doesn't match your political preferences or morals, I feel for you. I only live here because my family lives here. And yes, that's the family that has said nothing since I came out 6 months ago as an atheist. I find it ironic that the states with the lowest educational statistics, like quality education, are Republican. The more educated somebody is, the less they're likely to become Republican. They're more likely to get divorced or to have higher standards for their non-negotiables. This is why I don't live in most of America, because I refuse to live in places that don't see everyone as equal human beings with equal rights and access to everything white people take for granted or hetero people take for granted. I've been watching a lot of shows lately that they don't lean toward the straight audience, but more toward the queer or the ally audience. I've noticed that there are a lot of shows out there that whitewash queer people or erase queer people. I find this extremely unacceptable. And I've talked about in previous videos how characters in television shows and movies in the canon source written material are anything from asexual, bisexual, fluid, gay, and in the viewable media, they change that into being antisocial, straight, but shy, or they start off with them as they are in the canon source material, and then they change them halfway through the season by giving them a girlfriend. It is not acceptable to change people's sexualities. It's fine if you have a character that believes they're straight, and then through the course of a season, a show, they realize they're not straight. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. That's life in general. But to completely change a character's sexuality, there's only one reason why someone would do that. They don't want to have to deal with the complexities of the character. In my opinion, based on the environment I was raised, extremely Republican, erasing anything that isn't biblical values, biblical marriage, and just sterile straightness, I consider it a hate crime to erase somebody's sexuality. It's fine if you don't want to act in your sexuality. It's fine if your sexuality is the absence or the different desires that mainstream society expects and demands. There's nothing wrong with being asexual or aromantic. You can't help what you are. And you really shouldn't want to be anything different than what you are. People who really care about you won't want you to change who you are to be what you're not. Because people like this, their expectations are like goalposts. They move. They're like football first downs. They're constantly moving. If people don't like you being the best version of yourself, they're not going to like you being the fake version of yourself. They really won't like you. They might act like they do, but they really don't like you. I don't want to watch shows where they have a character who's supposed to be asexual. Some of the time they actually show them being that, and then they get a girlfriend and completely change. That's not being asexual, that's being shy, abstinent, what have you. supposed to be asexual. They changed him to heterosexual. This is not acceptable. Can you imagine taking a straight character and making them gay? And they're not supposed to be gay? And when I mean not supposed to, I mean it's not what the character is. It's not that they're in the closet or that they're hiding who they are. That's not who the character is. It's called having literary integrity. If a character is written to be asexual, you keep them as asexual. If you change somebody's sexuality, that's terrible. Or worse, act like their sexuality does not matter at all. And I'm not saying the sexuality has to be everything. That would be a boring character. But when we infantilize gay people's sexuality to be more palatable for straight people, can you imagine if gay people told straight people, you need to, ease off the sexuality because you're making the gay people uncomfortable? Straight people would never do that. And gay people would never ask anyone to do that. It just would not happen. I'm tired of watching characters whose sexualities and orientations are changed because it's just not going to make straight people happy. Who the fuck cares what straight people think? Who cares? If I don't like a show, I turn it off. And I haven't turned off a show yet. Not in 15 years. I'm very careful what shows I watch because I have limited amount of time and I do not want to waste 40 hours of my life watching a show that completely forgets who their characters are, proves characters wrong or right about who they are and who they're not and what they deserve. I don't have time to watch a show where the writers prove that somebody doesn't deserve to be loved. Not going to waste my time. I want to watch shows where they don't shy away from people's orientation. They don't make their orientation everything about them. And they have as much care, compassion, and focus on gay people and their journeys, not just their relationships, as they do straight people's. I watched a show recently. They spent 10 minutes breaking up a straight character, but they couldn't give the gay person a happy ending for 10 seconds with somebody we care about. That's the shows I don't want to ever watch. I'm tired of caring about a character and they never get a happy ending and their feelings are inconvenient or they only matter because the plot needs it to matter. And then they forget what this person or group of people is doing because their problems don't matter unless they push straight people in their journey forward. I'm tired of shows like that. I'm tired of shows that exist for the sole purpose of making straight people comfortable, happy. Who the fuck cares what straight people think or what makes straight people happy? Straight people can have the worst show or the best show, and it's not going to impact their privilege. I mean, we have straightness shoved down our throats every second of the day, even in our dreams. But God forbid we have a character who's as unabashed in their sexuality as a straight character, because why are we focusing on this? And yet, if it was a straight character, people would want more of the focus. Sex sells. People would rather have straight problems than watch a coming out scene. That says a lot about our society. I've seen the same things over and over. The same plots, the same boring storylines, the same uncomplicated characters. I want literary integrity. I want writer integrity. I'm sick of watching shows where they just beat up a character for 5 seasons straight. They never get a happy ending unless they pay for it. And the show loses its magic because the writers seem to care less about certain characters than others. And if I'm going to waste my time, attention that I could be using on something that does a better job, why would I focus on shows that let me down? Every single time I care about a show and characters, they let me down. Every single time. I don't need it. I do not need shows that make me care about a character or just use characters as punching bags. Every single time I watch an Asian drama, they don't bait me. They do not let me down. Not one single time in the 12 dramas I've watched. They've never let me down. Every single time I watch Netflix or an American show, they let me down. I think the only exception to this would be Heated Rivalry, which is a Canadian show. I want more from my shows. I have standards. I refuse to settle for less. I refuse. And I've talked with my roommate about these kind of shows. She doesn't see any problem with characters who are straight not getting the time they deserve as a character. And if the character was straight, they would not care how much focus was on the character. Even if it did nothing for the show, wasted time, and didn't go anywhere. They wouldn't care. Because the character is straight. If a character is gay, my roommate would not really want to hear from them. They would automatically not be their favorite character. And it's stupid, but that's the life they want. I think we as, queer people and allies, we deserve better. We deserve to read, watch, and experience everything that straight people, it's more than take for granted. It's so ingrained in people's psyches, beliefs, even in their bones. Getting a straight character is not enough anymore. Having someone admit what their sexuality is and actually come out is not enough anymore. We need characters that are not straight, that are not repressed. They are unashamedly themselves. They will not conform to compet standards. They tell straight people to shut up or to get with the program. I'm tired of watching gay people that are closeted on the DL. I want to watch queer characters that are already out living their best lives. Not that shows that don't have that are bad.
In 2 miles, turn right on North Main Street.
That show young people what coming out is like. And I'm not saying you can never have a tragedy where a gay romance or crush, where it ends unrequited or someone dies, because that is the reality of life. But it shouldn't be because they're queer. It's because something happened. There are plenty of tragedies involving straight people. Just don't do a bury your gays. Or better yet, tell people right up front, this is not a love story. Queer people should not have to hold their breath wondering if someone's going to die, if it's going to be unrequited, or if someone's going to conform to the heteronormative expectations and somebody's going to be left on the side of a driveway because the other person abandoned them for a woman or a man, depending on what, gender or sexuality you identify as. I'm just tired of reading tragedies. I'm tired of being gaslit, too. I'm tired of gay characters just being their sexuality. Even though coming out and being who you are is so important, it's not everything. And when they minimize a gay character to just their sexuality, that's what we call objectification. It's dehumanizing. It's just as bad doing it to a straight character. Making a straight man just be attractive. It's not okay. We not only need visible, already out gay characters, we need characters that aren't just white. We need to have shows that show queer people of all ethnicities, backgrounds, and gender ideologies. Have you noticed that almost all queer shows that are extremely popular is because they're white men? Sure, I like heated rivalry, but can we have non-white people being gay? I mean, that is a trope, you know. That most gay shows are white people. And I'm tired of burying your gays. Not just killing off a character who's gay because they're gay, but one of the most common ways people do bury your gays isn't by killing the character off. It's by killing off their feelings, their happy ending, or minimizing the person's feelings to where they make it a phase. Who wants to watch that? A homophobe? Probably. Can you imagine if a studio told straight characters or a straight audience that your crush does not matter, you need to get over it because you don't deserve and you should just accept yourself? Can you imagine every romantic movie? Well, you just need to accept yourself, and they never get with people. That's what they tell the queer audience all the time. I'm tired of it. I don't even watch shows until they're all done anymore. I've been queer baited so many times. I'm sick of it. I wait till shows are done, and then I research to see, did they get a happy ending? If the answer is no, 99% of the time, I won't watch it, period. Why would I waste my time when I can turn on heated rivalry? And yeah, season 2 is going to have a lot of uncomfortable material. If you've watched, well, you can't watch it, but if you've listened or read The Long Game, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's going to get dark. But I don't want to waste time on shows that isn't a happy ending. Even if it takes a super long time to get a happy ending and they have to go all the way around, take the long route, fine. I want to watch gay characters, queer characters that aren't repressed. They're as proud of who they are as the white straight hero is. That's what I want to watch. That doesn't mean I won't once in a while watch a teenager who's still in the closet in a show. I mean, one of my first gay characters I ever watched was Kurt on Glee. He was in the closet for, I think, the first 2 seasons, or at least the first season. I forget, it's been 5 years. But most of the most beloved characters, gay characters, queer characters, are in the closet. Or they're out, but not to everybody. I'm not going to not watch a show because that happens. But they better have an interesting journey that gets them out. And if it's not with the main character, somebody that's as good or better. And my attention has to be earned. I don't give out my attention anymore. You have to really do a lot of work, have great writing, consistent characters, believable sexuality, or I don't even tune in. I don't watch shows until they're all done. I've been burnt so many times. I've been burnt by straight shows too. Not as common, but I have been burnt. Or they cancel it either before or right after they get together, so we don't know what happens next. A lot of shows I thought about watching, I realized they canceled them right before the 2 friends actually got together. And I'm just not wasting my time anymore. It's not worth it. I'd rather know that show never existed than be disappointed and waste my time. And I have watched a few shows that was canceled after season 1 where the couple did not get together or it was right after they got together. As long as I know it up front, I know what's going to happen. 1 out of 1,000 shows, I might actually watch it anyways. There were 2 shows I've seen recently. What were they? Shadow and Bone and Lockwood and Company. They canceled after the first season. I still watch them. I mean, it's extremely rare, but occasionally I do make exceptions. What I do not make exceptions for is baiting me. I already want the writers to completely vanish when they do this to me. And I'm completely tired of it. If somebody baits me, I'm never watching any of their shows the rest of my life. Not unless there is a public apology and they completely change who they are. And if it's a white cis straight guy, probably not even then. If the people who are writing queer characters are white cis straight guys, I'm definitely waiting till the very end. I have been burnt so many times, it's never happening again. And really the only people who should be ashamed or feel bad about this is not me. It's their problem. They created the scenario, and I don't have to have any remorse for it at all. It's not my problem. I want to not waste my time. I want to enjoy what I watch. I don't want to hope that nothing I don't want to happen happens. And I honestly believe as long as allies, queer people, straight people allow these kind of characters and shows to gain popularity, that disrespect, make jokes, gaslight, and invalidate queer people's feelings, romantic pursuits, dreams, and end games, what can we honestly expect? The reason why we have such great quality entertainment from specific companies or projects is because we've conditioned the people who make these to make these things. If homophobic things were not popular and very high in mainstream, they wouldn't make them. It's because people allow these writers, producers, and companies to make crap like this. Someone somewhere is spending money buying it. They only make what we pay them for. And that's why we have better female leads, characters, and subplots. Because that makes money. I hope by the time I retire in 30 years, the way queer people are presented is so very different that the next century, the 22nd century, we see a completely different way queer people are treated. It's going to take hundreds of years to gain equality, but we have a very good chance of making our opinions known. And fool me once, shame on them. Fool me twice, shame on me. When certain writers, companies, and projects waste my time, and make a joke about my intelligence, intelligence paying attention, I will never watch their stuff again. Probably even with an apology, I will not watch their stuff. It's called conditioning. I refuse to waste my time twice. I don't watch shows until they're completely done because I've been burnt so many times. From cancellations, queer baiting, lack of consistent quality. I think they make their own bed. They get to lie in it. And honestly, unless the show has sentimental value to me, I will never rewatch those shows ever again. Why would I? Why would I rewatch something that wasted my time, made a mockery of queer people, caused queer people to maybe never come out because of the show's morals, twisted morals? If you make people second guess their ability to understand queerness, you're a villain. Villains don't have to be bad people. If somebody writes something that talks someone out of coming out, purposely misleads the audience to make fun of queer people, writes coming out scenes that are cringe, I mean, you're a villain. I don't talk people out of coming out. I tell them the truth of what could happen if they choose to come out while they're financially dependent on their parents, or if they're in a religious community where they could be harmed. But I don't talk people out of coming out. I just give them the information they need to make a well-rounded, autonomous decision. What they choose is their business. And there are a lot of writers, companies, and projects out there that are villainy. I'm sick of watching shows where they have queer stereotypes. I want to watch shows that do not do that. And if enough people stop watching shows that do those things, those shows would cease to be made anymore. If there's not a market and people find things offensive, they won't make them. You look at movies and shows that have racism, homophobia, sexism. Most of those things are no longer going to make money anymore because people will call you out and you will lose a lot of your PR. If enough people do not buy that garbage, the garbage won't be made going forward. So, I don't want to see just queer characters. I want them to be complex, interesting. I want them to talk about their sexuality, but I want them to have their own career, interests, platonic and romantic relationships, if that's what is right for the character. I want these characters to, if they do develop a romantic interest, I want it to make sense, support the existing journey of the character. I do not want it to be a complete stranger that we never get to actually meet and care about. Not showing as much love, writer focus, care, and sensitivity to queer characters like you do without even blinking is homophobia. And I'm tired of watching those shows. Just tired of it. Will not do it. I'm sick to death of watching those shows. The people who write them are losers. And even if they're not doing it to be a villain, that is what it's called. Making fun of queer people is villainy. Erasing queer characters or changing characters that are hate crime. A race teacher is a hate crime. I should know. I lived in evangelical Christianity. A race teacher was the only thing that existed when it came to queer people, and I didn't even know they existed because their race teacher was that good, sadly. I want to see different types, different kinds of queer people. And I found that usually what ethnicity, gender, and orientation you are either makes me more hesitant, more readily wanting to watch something, or completely avoiding a show because of consistent disrespect. I mean, you you look at some shows, books that are written by queer artists, scriptwriters, authors. I'm going to be much more likely to watch and read their stuff because they've proven to be consistently sensitive to queer people. White, cis, heterosexual male writers are more likely to queerbait. I just don't watch shows till they're all the way done. And it's not just queerbaiting, it's quality. If a show doesn't maintain the quality like Breaking Bad, forget it. Forget it. I can rewatch one of the greatest television shows of all time instead of watching a new mediocre blah TV show. And yeah, as I said, if I do not have sentiment with the show, if it turns out to be bad, I will never watch that show again. And I will write on a list who these people are. So if I ever see their names in the credits of a project, I immediately say, nope. Exactly. I'm just not doing it. It's not worth it. Queer people go through enough bullshit without having to put up with hateful writers. And in my opinion, the most egregious are not the people that openly hate queer people. They're the ones who say, oh, we're allies, we're friendly to them, we include a gay character, we don't really go anywhere with it, they don't ever get a romantic interaction, we just milk their suffering. Those are the most egregious homophobes, the fake allies. And I should know, I've met several of them. None of them are in my family, by the way, because they don't even fake being an ally. And my roommate would watch the same show I do that is so egregiously homophobic. And she says, what's the problem? If you don't know, I'm not sure I want to be friends with you. It's that simple. I do not want to be friends with homophobic people. Because who you spend time with tells people who you are. I mean, if you're friends and spend time with people that are criminals, do bad things, and they're just racist, that will tell a lot of people who you are as a person. I don't want to be around people because people's behaviors and beliefs rub off on you. If you're around misogynistic people, racist, homophobic bigots, racism is learned and conditioned. I do not want that stuff to rub off on me in any shape or form. And I do not want to support companies and businesses that produce this kind of garbage. I'd rather watch nothing than something that is so egregiously homophobic they say they're an ally. If you treat queer people like that, you're not an ally. You're a villain. And when the only time you have queer characters is to use them as a punching bag, the male gaze, or just being so disrespectful, I'm done with these people. Absolutely done. And I feel bad for people. really, really bad. Because how many people have watched certain shows thinking that this time they're going to have a wonderful experience? And it's not. I mean, it's so not. I don't know how you could be any less not. But they will still watch it hoping and be disappointed again. You disappoint people. You're a villain. You're an awful human being. And I am tired of watching those people. I want to watch shows that have amazing character development for everybody. I want queer characters to be so validated, visible, respected, focused, shown as much love and compassion as they do even the most boring, tedious, barely ever focused on straight people. I'm not saying straight people are boring. I'm saying the most boring characters, and I'm thinking of 3 characters right now that are so background, nothing really happens. If they can show more focus on those characters than they do on main characters that are queer, that's homophobia. I don't want ambiguous sexuality. It's okay if the first season they're trying to figure out what they are. As long as by the 3rd season, we know, like season 3, episode 1, if I don't know that they've come out, that they are a certain sexuality and it's said, discussed, and they're set in who they are, I'm not watching the show. I'm sick of ambiguous sexuality. If I want to be teased, I'll put on Sherlock or Supernatural or Stranger Things. I'm sick of shows that put everything in subtext. It's fine to use subtext in the first 2 seasons because we're getting to know characters. But there better be zero confusion. If by the beginning of season 3, they don't have everything nailed down for queer characters, and I haven't even started watching it yet, it's an automatic no. They don't even have to nail down straight characters. We know, but I guess it's too much work to write in confirmation for queer or fluid characters. It's not too much work. They're homophobic. And I would rather watch nothing than hateful, homophobic shows dressed up to being sensitive to queer people. Or you can watch a show about outcast and not one outcast ever gets the girl, the boy, or whatever's in between. The 80% of the audience can be stupid and believe whatever they're told, but I've taken classes for literary and script writing. I know when people stomp all over the tropes. You're not supposed to stomp on the tropes. You're supposed to use the tropes or subvert the tropes. There is no in between here. And if you're clever enough to subvert and straight bait people, that means when you queer bait people, you're another level of villainy. If you're clever enough to straight bait an audience, you're clever enough to give a queer character meaning, visibility, and respect. And if you can't even do that, you are on a completely new, higher level of more egregious villainy. And for me, it's just not worth it anymore. I found shows. They're never American shows. They're always outside of America. But I found foreign shows that I don't even have to try. By episode 6, they do more than what it took them 10 years to do in Supernatural. They don't kill off queer characters. They don't. They're actually together before the 11th episode because they always break up in the 11th episode. That's actually a trope. I would rather watch Asian shows that never disappoint me. About queer representation, couples, and whatever you want to have there. And watch Netflix and be queer baited for 3 seasons or however many seasons of Wednesday there is. What's ironic is my roommate has it on her wall. And when I mentioned that it's a queer bait, she said, "A what now?" Yeah, I'm not going to hang things on my walls for shows that disrespect queer people. You cannot accidentally queer bait people. That's not a thing. You purposely don't nail down people's sexuality with. You have no intention of following through. It's deliberate. You can't convince me otherwise. You can't accidentally write a queer character. Any more than you can accidentally write a female character. It's purposeful. And I don't watch American shows before they're done. Will not do it. Luckily, I watch shows like Sherlock, Stranger Things, Supernatural, and I'm trying to think here, Teen Wolf, before I even knew what queerbaiting was. Because if I had known, I probably would have hurled the remote at this television screen. It's intentional. They queerbait to maximize profit. That is next level villainy. I took a class to find out what queerbaiting is. There are different types of queerbaiting, but they're all malicious, even if it's not premeditated. Anytime you create characters without any inclination or future purpose of following through on the teasing and hinting of a character or a coupledom, that's queerbaiting. And one of the worst would be to market it to draw in audiences. You have no intention of following through, but you market it that way. That is so egregious. That's insidious. But I would say the most common way shows do what I call queer baiting and gaslighting is creating characters that are not stereotypically a gender or an orientation, and it's left open for ambiguous fan debate. Not because they want to have an ambiguous ending, but because they don't want to alienate the straight people. That's the only reason why we have ambiguous sexualities. It's not because the writers forgot to nail it down to talk about it. They can't afford to talk about it because they're so afraid that somebody is going to be offended that they'll lose $5 million revenue. I always deem queerbaiting as writers that have lost their balls, or in this case, probably never had them. I'm a writer and an author myself. Every time I write a queer character, I make sure that I do not create characters that are so ambiguous nobody knows what they are. It would never occur to me to write that. I put enough hints that everyone should be 99% sure what this person is by having a lack of a boyfriend, girlfriend, or I state it in the first chapter. Like, there is no, I wonder what this person is like. If you don't know, you're blind or you can't read English, which is perfectly fine. But if you can read the language in which the book is written, character says, I'm not sure I'm straight, I don't really like girls, and then you go from there, and you never break that standard. When you make it very clear somebody isn't into girls, you don't do a 180 later on in the book and, oh, they are into girls. You have to have writer integrity. And for some reason, Netflix must not understand the concept. You set something up and you don't deliver it. It's kind of like a magic trick where someone disappears, but they never reappear. It's like a golf joke without the punchline. It's like we're waiting for the shoe to drop, but it never drops. There's no release in tension. It's just there. It annoys me. It's not hard to write a good story, but it's really easy to write bad, terrible shows. And I think it's a multifaceted thing. I think most shows, they start out strong, then season, usually 2 or 3, they just lose momentum. It's like they're on a motorcycle and they just start going back and forth weaving. There's no continuity. Character development is completely abandoned or doesn't make sense. And what the characters end up with, or who they end up with, or the end game where it can just be not a relationship, doesn't make sense because it contradicts what they wanted in the very opening scene of the show. And if someone says I'm not lovable and you prove them right, that is terrible writing. I don't care what Netflix says. It's terrible. Don't make your audience regret giving you their attention. That's like one of the most egregious things an author, a writer, a director can do. Waste and anger your audience. So, I'm usually disappointed in shows. Well, let's be honest here. 99 out of 100 shows, I'm disappointed. So I don't even watch shows anymore. I watch clips from shows. There's a difference. And once all 7 seasons are done, I research it to find out if they're a villain or not. The writers. 99 out of 100 shows, I will not watch, period. I just won't do it. I might make an exception if the people's chemistry is interesting and there's not a reason not to. But it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We all deserve better. And this is why we don't have nice things. I've grown up my entire life in heteronormative, compact existence. Religious, biblical, secular, homophobia, sexism, you name it, I've rolled in it, unfortunately. I just will always prefer watching queer media shows, reading their books, because there is emotional complexity, angst, and danger that just really doesn't, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist with straight people or their romantic or focused media. I'm saying it's not to the same intensity, and it's just not as interesting to me. Unless it's a forbidden love story, or the child or the people involved aren't adults, where it's most likely going to be a crush or an unrequited love story, there's really not much angst. I mean, enemies to lovers, really, there's not much angst there. You pretty much know what's going to happen, because shows usually go a few routes. They like each other immediately. Friends to lovers. Enemies to lovers. Forbidden love. But really, when it comes to straight romance, there's really not that much mystery. Most writers write the same stuff over and over. It just doesn't knock my socks off. Heated Rivalry is different. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Heated Rivalry that really isn't a surprise. But I like complexities. I like angst. And it's just not there when it comes to straight media. I'm so particular with the stuff I read and watch. I do not put up with homophobia. And if I for some reason, twice a year, watch something straight, if the female protagonists are male fantasies, the male gaze, their projections of what men want, I'm not going to watch it. I want to watch complex characters. I just get more enjoyment and my attention is held at all most of the time when it's queer related. I have 30 years of straight media consumption. I want something more complex. And I'm not saying you only have to watch queer things. Of course not. But I will always prioritize queer-themed media because we're lucky to even have it in this politically homophobic climate. We're lucky to have any representation that is different from heterosexuality. We should not just be thankful, but celebrate every time a queer character has visibility and is treated with as much compassion and respect and focus as straight characters. Not because we're lucky to have it per se, but so many centuries and decades of young people never had that access. Those books and shows were banned or not even made. Every year we should celebrate that we have much more representation than we used to 20 years ago. We should not settle for what we have in 2026. We should be actually pursuing what we'll have in 2050, which hopefully is much different than what we unfortunately get robbed of every day. I want better. And you have to earn my attention, my viewership. I don't just give it away. I want complex characters. And I just found that watching queer representation is much more interesting than watching straight representation. Because we really don't need straight representation. It's everywhere. It's even in our food. It's in the air we breathe. I don't think there's anything on this planet that is not hetero-centered. If you can think of something, put it down in the comments. I desire more, better. We all deserve the representation of a 10. We're lucky to get a 3 in 2026. Heated Rivalries was probably a 7. I mean, it's not perfect. They are white guys, after all. But compared to what our parents had, we are making giant leaps toward equality. Or most of the time, we're missing not good enough. But let's be honest, if it was good enough, what would we focus our time pursuing next? Probably something equally as important. But we should never settle for the status quo. Never. And I hope that the next generation says, "Oh hell no, we're not settling for Supernatural or Sherlock." I wish the last generation before me did not settle for that crap. I'm not saying it's not a great show, but when something taints the legacy of what a show should have been, this is why I don't watch these shows. If I knew that in Supernatural they killed off all the queer characters, I would not have watched the show. I'm not going to financially support, and I am not going to spend my time and attention on shows that make a mockery of queer people. And yes, Supernatural killing off all their queer characters is insidious homophobia. We all deserve better. The characters deserve better. I mean, whoo! It's terrible. I still think the most egregious version of queer baiting and homophobia is to subvert the genre, the tropes that hint at being an ally, showing affection and care to queer people, and then making a show about outcasts, and none of the queer outcasts get what they wanted or what they said they didn't deserve midway through the season or through the whole series. When writers create characters that don't believe they should fall in love or that they deserve to have platonic or romantic entanglement, and that they will always be alone, and you prove them right while saying we have queer visibility. I use the quote from Elf, "You sit on a throne of lies." Well, in this case, they were standing on a throne of lies. It's like, who the fuck are we kidding here? Like, it is. It really, really, really grates on my nerves. It makes me want to buy a poster of these shows that queerbait me. I want to put my foot through it. And when straight, cis, heterosexual men, in particular, your writers that run my favorite shows, my favorite queer characters, when people say, "Well, how did you like the show?" my response would be, I hope these homophobic villains, I hope writers of their favorite show runs their show. Yeah. That would be karma. People who intentionally run queer characters and sit on a throne of lies, I hope terrible writers run their favorite shows. Because that would be commiseration and karma. When you tell people things are going to pay off, but they never pay off, you sit on a throne of lies. I will never believe that it was supposed to happen that way. It doesn't make sense. Or, as some shows would say, it does not compute. I think that's Spock. The emotions do not compute. The plot does not compute. You cannot sell me a relationship, an in-game, a character development where their whole journey and their starting point does not support or foreshadow what their ending is. Not all characters get what they want, but you need to have tremendous character growth for you to give them something else that is better than they ever dreamed of. Anything less, and we're gonna have a problem. Like, a real problem. And I know which writers, I will never, ever watch their stuff again. They sit on a throne of lies. That is what it is. And I took classes to learn about the general audience. The average Joe Schmo that watches shows. I honestly believe that 90% of the audience has to be spoon-fed things that 50 years ago you could just show and people would get it. I don't want characters telling me what they're doing. If you have to be told what they're doing, you aren't old enough, or you're not the right kind of person to be watching this. You don't tell people, you show people by what they do. I don't need to be spoon-fed something. I'm not a 5-year-old. And when writers make a mockery of my ability to read characters, to have critical thinking, to understand what toxic behavior is, and then they never resolve toxic behavior, and everything's cleared up but it's never addressed. I think these writers are either idiots or they're lazy and hope that nobody says the emperor has no clothes. So at the end of the day, we as an audience get the entertainment we pay for and settle for, because the last generation of people settled for this crap, which is why we're being spoon-fed this crap. And I'm just not going to do it. I am not going to watch crap. I would rather watch the Breaking Bad. That never loses its consistency. And they can sit on a throne of lies all they want to. They can fool the audience, fool everyone. But they're not fooling me.